Welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast, where we deep dive into the best matches in AEW history. Brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network and your host, Sam Brown. Hello and welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast. I'm your host, Sam Brown. Thank you for joining me. Today, we continue with the fourth season of the Match Guide, where we will be looking beyond the ropes of Tony Khan's ring to matches, wrestlers, promotions, and movements that influenced all elite wrestling. If you enjoy the show today, you can subscribe or rate it on your podcast app of choice, support the Social Suplex podcast financially through Red Circle, and make sure you check out all of the other great shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where we cover all aspects of the world of pro wrestling. One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Tunnel Talk, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, Wrestle Art with Chris Things, Imp's AEW Adventure, and Joshing Around. And you can subscribe to the Social Suplex newsletter at socialsuplex.com/newsletter. Become part of the Social Suplex community by joining our Discord, where you can chat with hosts of all our podcasts, as well as other wrestling fans from around the world. Links for all of these things are in the podcast description. My guest for today is a podcaster with a proclivity for positivity. I'm talking, of course, about the fabulous Floyd Johnson Jr., host of All Things Elite, the longest-running podcast in the game about all elite wrestling. And we are diving in to Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi, the final for Best of the Super Juniors 2019. Hello, Floyd. It's great to have you back on the podcast.
Hello. I didn't mean to start off with a cough. It's great to be here. I am very excited to talk about their aerial assassin against, at the time, my favorite New Japan wrestler, Shingo Takagi.
Well, he wasn't so big then. He's a little bit bigger now than he was then. He was still big for a junior then. I don't know how he ever got into that. He ever tipped the scale. He must have done, some serious weight cutting whenever they, did the shoot. I'm sure they did the shoot weigh-in at some point. He would have done some serious weight cutting, Shingo Takagi. Beefy boy for a junior.
Yeah, Shingo, I definitely don't think was a junior. And Will Ospreay was borderline because he had started putting on weight at this point. He hadn't got to the full Ospreay that he is now, but you had seen him starting to beef up.
Yeah, he had some muscle on him. When he first came out, he was, pretty gangly, bit like a Helico, to chuck an AEW person in there. Really tall. And Helico just clearly never ate his 80s chicken breast and worked out and pumped iron that Will Ospreay decided to do. And yeah, you could definitely see it in the match we're covering today. Floyd, thanks for joining me. We joked before we came on that you're pretty much the co-host of this this podcast. I don't have a formal co-host, but at this point it's either you or Imp. Like, you can flip a coin, and, whatever it does. And you're also for free and my counselor, my when I'm bored during the day, the person that I message to talk about wrestling, and when I need mental help, and and I can't get through to a psychiatrist, I don't have a booking for a couple of weeks, it's you that I message now. So thank you for all that, Floyd.
You're very welcome. I work, just for everyone listening, if you haven't remembered this, I work overnights in the States, so our schedules actually align. Like, when he's like, "Oh, I'm about to go to bed," that's generally when I'm about to go to bed, because I go to bed at 6 a.m. and it's like, I think 8 or 9 p.m. there, or at 6 a.m. here. It's like 12 or 13 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so our schedules actually align more than, say, anyone else that I live next to in the States.
Yeah. You're the one American that it's easy to schedule a podcast with.
Yes.
So, but I do like having you on for more than just that. It's I'm really excited to dive into this match as well. Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi. As I sort of said up front, we are looking at matches beyond AEW and sort of things that influenced where they're going. And of course, Will Ospreay has become such a big part of AEW. At time of recording, it seems like they're foreshadowing that he's going to be coming back at some point. So we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but it's clear they've got big plans for him. And when he showed up in 2024 full time, he immediately was top of the card. And, coming into AEW, had a big reputation. I think a lot of that reputation was being built around this time that this match happens, Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi. So I think it's a really good match to cover. Floyd, why did you choose this match in particular?
Okay, so when we talk about New Japan, during this period of time, I always think New Japan. I know there's people out there that have this AEW New Japan beef. I am not included in that because to me, my love for AEW stemmed from my years of watching New Japan. It was just like, because once I watched New Japan, I was like, okay, this is the in-ring style I wanted. And I'm also a WWE fan. I know that's not nice to say. And then the WWE was the entertainment side I wanted. Like the storylines and the backstage stuff and all that stuff was what I wanted. So I always said my perfect wrestling child would be the wrestling of New Japan and the entertainment of WWE come together. So like if WrestleMania was just a bunch of banger ass matches, I probably would have never looked at another wrestling company. But in New Japan, it's just like sometimes the storylines are uniquely Japanese and I don't really get them. So finding that baby, and I do think for the first few years of AEW, they were that baby. I think they have leaned closer. I'm not saying it's like, I think they're like 60% New Japan, 40% WWE. But now I say about 70% New Japan, 30% WWE. So it's like a lot more, especially these last few months when they've gotten the hottest, they've leaned more into the wrestling. So that comes from New Japan and the style, the match build style. This match is specific of it. It's the best junior match I've ever seen. Number one, I've watched Best of Super Juniors every year since 2018. It's the best junior match I've ever seen. And I know people can go back 20 years and be like, it wasn't as good as this match. Fair. I am not as versed in the history of New Japan as you. But to me, this is one of the best junior matches I've ever seen and probably my top 5 match ever. So when you said, give me a match outside of AEW, and I don't think it took me more than 2 minutes to say this match.
Yep. I as I said up front, I'm really happy to be doing this match. There's a lot that we can get out of it. And yeah, I don't think you're alone in thinking this is a really good match, Floyd. This is generally regarded pretty well, as we'll find out when we get to the actual match itself. People did like this at the time, believe it or not.
I remember watching this, because I watched all singles matches during the juniors. I didn't watch every match like I had been the year before. I watched all singles matches, and I was just mesmerized. I just loved his bullying style. And so he get up to Ospreay, and it was just like, I watched this match and my jaw dropped. And I remember I'm a part of this wrestling group. I said, Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi, watch it and thank me later. And it was like, and I truly believe this. If you're a professional wrestling fan and you don't like this match, you don't like professional wrestling.
Yeah, or you like a form of wrestling that's like so alien that it's hardly classifiable as wrestling.
I don't understand it.
Yeah,
this was physical. It was high flying. It was personal. It was vicious. It was every part of professional wrestling in one match. At that time I was like, it's like literally the only match at that time that I could say was clearly better was Omega and Okada from Dominion. And I think that was Omega and Okada from Dominion was before this, right?
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
It was the year before.
Yeah, it was the year before. So that was the only other match I would put over it at the time. That would have been my 1 and 2. And I'm not talking like, oh, these are 1 and 2 of the greatest New Japan matches I'd ever seen. they were 1 and 2 of the greatest matches I'd ever seen. Period. 40 years of wrestling. I saw Steamboat and Flair. I saw Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I saw, many Kurt Angle matches. I saw AJ Styles and TNA in 2002. And but this was the best, one of the best matches I'd ever seen.
Well, look, let's get into it. Let's start talking about this match. We're gonna set it up first, though. We're not gonna dive straight into the match because this match came at the end of a really good tournament, a really well booked tournament. There was a lot to love about the Best of the Super Juniors that year. So this was the first ever Best of the Super Juniors to have 20 contestants in it. So that meant that everyone was going to wrestle 9 times throughout. So it was, an expanded tournament because they had so much talent. Like, you go down this, you have Block A, Shingo, of course, at the top. He goes through it unbeaten, and we'll talk about that run, what it looked like. But, trailing him, Taiji Ishimori, Dragon Lee, Sho, Marty Scurll, Jonathan Gresham, Titan, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Tiger Mask 4, and Taka Michinoku. Should be noted, Taka Michinoku had to forfeit the final 3 matches due to a leg injury that happened midway through the tournament. Second block B, Will Ospreay, of course, won that. And he beat, for that, Ryusuke Taguchi, Bushi, Yo, El Phantasmo, Bandito, Robbie Eagles, Rocky Romero, Dookie, and Ren Narita, who was a young lion at the time. Let's firstly talk about Shingo Takagi's journey through the Best of the Super Juniors. Coming in, he debuted in New Japan, coming across from Dragon Gate in late 2018 as part of Los Ingobernables de Japón. He was unbeaten as a junior and coming into this tournament, and he said he was going to run through the block unbeaten, and that's exactly what he did. He's the first to do it since Prince Devitt did it in 2013. But the thing with Shingo is he hadn't held New Japan singles gold. So he had this formidable unbeaten streak, but he hadn't held any gold. He hadn't held any belts. And that was his goal. Win the block, win the Best of Super Juniors, and then go to take on Dragon Lee, who was the champion at the time, for that, and finally win some gold in New Japan. And yeah, as I said, that's what he did. He went through it undefeated. He came up against some people who were quicker than him, but they weren't strong enough. He came against some people who were able to match him a little bit in power, like guys like Sho, but they couldn't match him. He was too much for everyone. He overwhelmed everyone. You said that you watched all of Shingo's matches through this tournament, Floyd. What did you think of Shingo throughout the Best of the Super Juniors in 2019?
Oh, if I could design a wrestler, it would probably been him at that time. He was just so physical, and he bullied. He was the bully because technically, it was pointed out by Kevin Kelly and Gino and it's the guy, he's still on there now with Walker. Chris Charlton, that he was barely a junior. They said they're like, I don't know what scale you're using, but yeah, he's not really a junior. And they told that story physically. He would literally pound on people and they would give him their finisher or their signature move, and he'd kick out because it would be like a heavyweight boxer fighting against a lightweight boxer. The lightweight boxer might be more skilled, but there's not enough power in the punches to keep the heavyweight down. And that's basically what the story was. People were giving him his best shot, but your best shot just wasn't good enough. And I was not a Dragon Gate US Gate guy, and I wasn't, I didn't watch a lot of the other Japanese wrestling. So this was my introduction to Shingo. So imagine these are the first 9 matches you've ever seen him wrestle. And he's just like, oh my God, I love this guy. I love him.
Yeah, a special part of this match for this series of matches for me was the culmination of his rivalry with Sho. So Shingo, of course, came in initially as a tag wrestler. So he came in for World Tag Lead, where he tagged alongside Bushi for Los Ingobernables. And they had a big rivalry with Sho and Yo from Chaos. And particularly you had Sho, who was trying to, he was a powerhouse in his team, and he was one of the powerhouses in the junior division until Shingo comes along, who's just physically bigger than him, like shows more cut, but Shingo's just got a barrel chest, and he's a thick man, thick shoulders, and all that. And those two, sort of butted heads a lot as tag wrestlers, and they finally had a singles match in this tournament, and it was exactly what you want, like Sho trying with all his might and putting everything he could into trying to get one up on Shingo and trying to match Shingo's strength to strength, but just not being able to. And as you said, like Shingo was just able to outpower him and ultimately run through him and get that win, against, as he did against everyone in his side of the block. It was a very simple but like really effective build of like Shingo Takagi being built up as this unbeatable, unmovable, and overpowering object in Block A of the Best of the Super Juniors. Let's look at Block B, which is the one that Will Ospreay won. Will Ospreay had been with New Japan for a fair bit longer. He had previously been a junior title holder. So he won the junior title in 2018, but then he lost it to Hiromu Takahashi at Dominion. So he was kind of on a quest to come back and win it. And he also hadn't ever won a Best of the Super Juniors. He'd been in it Best of the Super Juniors before. Of course, famously had that match with Ricochet in 2016. That was a Best of the Super Juniors match. But he, progressively been doing better. But coming into this, he, off the back of previously being a champion, really wants to win it. So he gets a chance to win that championship back. And around this time, he'd become the never openweight champion earlier in this year. So he's talking about bridging the gap between being singles, being a junior, being in heavyweight, and doing both. But he really wants to be the junior champion as well as fighting up in heavyweight. So that's his quest going in. He has like some interesting interactions in the lead up with ELP, who's a new person in New Japan. He debuts just before Best of the Super Juniors, and he also got a lot of history with Robbie Eagles, which sort of plays out through this block. Floyd, do you remember much about Will Ospreay's journey through the block stages of Best of the Super Juniors?
I don't remember other than what I looked up right before the matches. I do know his two losses were to Robbie Eagles and ELP. And that's what I pretty much got out of it. But I honestly can't say I remember a lot about the earlier blocks. I would love to be like, hey, I got this expertise on it. But no, I was enamored with Shingo at that time. So I was just like, I want to see Shingo fight.
You had eyes for only one man. That's beautiful.
Only one man. Yes.
Hearts in those eyes. Well, look, I actually paid a little bit more attention to Block B than I did Block A, because as much as I loved Shingo versus Sho, that was probably my favorite match of the tournament. To me, it sort of seemed to be pretty clear what was going down in that block with Shingo. So for me, the intrigue was more in Block B, and also Block B has my boy, one of my favorites of all time, Robbie Eagles in it, my Australian favorite. And he had an interesting set. Will Ospreay played an interesting part in what was happening with Robbie Eagles in that tournament. So for those who weren't aware, weren't watching, El Phantasmo, let me start that sentence again. Robbie Eagles debuts in New Japan around about the same time Shingo does, actually, as a tag before World Tag League, the Junior Tag League, to wrestle with Taiji Ishimori in Bullet Club. Now, for those who know a lot about Australian pro wrestling, Will Ospreay and Robbie Eagles had a series of matches in MCW, Melbourne Championship Wrestling. And at the end of it all, Will Ospreay offered Robbie Eagles the Japanese tag off of his tights at the time. He had flags for all the places that he'd wrestled, and he offered it as a way to say, come with me to Japan. And Robbie Eagles refused it and instead went to Japan with Taiji Ishimori in Bullet Club. They're wrestling. It's going well. Robbie Eagles is a heel at the time. And he's sort of establishing himself in the division, obviously not in the way that Shingo did. He's not getting that kind of level of a push, but he's establishing himself as someone that people respect in that division, and is someone that's well respected. And then just before Best of the Super Juniors, El Phantasmo comes in, and El Phantasmo is far more provocative towards Will Ospreay. He's also in Bullet Club, but he is like getting the ice bags that that they have to put on after matches, and he's like teabagging Will Ospreay and doing all this, like sort of really gross stuff to Will Ospreay, I might say, really antagonistic stuff. And he's like, "Come on, Robbie, why aren't you getting in on this?" And Robbie Eagles is, he says he went to New Japan through Bullet Club because he wanted to prove himself. He didn't want to come in on Will Ospreay's coattails, but it's clear there's like a level of mutual respect there. And so Will Ospreay plays like a really interesting part in this schism that's sort of happening in Bullet Club between Phantasmo and between Robbie Eagles, which culminates later on. Of course, they have their matches. Phantasmo and Eagles have a match. Ospreay has matches against both of them, and the interactions are all really interesting. And throughout, Robbie Eagles is having more and more crisis of faith of like, I don't really like this guy, El Phantasmo. He's a bit of a dickhead. And the people that I'm around are sort of forcing me to do things that I don't want to because he's in Bullet Club. He's a heel, and he's like very slow burning, turning face. And then later on, after the tournament's finished, when they're in Sydney, Robbie Eagles has a match in Melbourne. One night he has a match for the Junior Championship against Will Ospreay. Spoilers, that's how this all ends up. This is how this all ended up in 2019. But and after that match, Will Ospreay again presents Robbie Eagles with the Japanese thing saying, "Come join my faction. You don't want to be around these dickheads." And Robbie Eagles plays him off. And then the night after, he's in Sydney, his hometown, in front of everyone, wrestles in the main event. It's Robbie Eagles, Jay White, and I want to say, I can't remember the third person that was in the ring at the time. I want to say it was Fale. Yeah, it was Fale. That's right. It was Fale against Ospreay, Tanahashi, and Okada. Little old Sam in the crowd cheering his little heart out. But at the end of it, Jay White's presenting Robbie Eagles with a chair to attack Will Ospreay, and Robbie Eagles ends up attacking Jay White with the chair, chases him off, turns face. So I really loved, I wanted to give this the I'm never going to probably talk about Robbie Eagles again, potentially on this podcast. And I loved that story in 2019. It was awesome. And it was so cool to be there in the ring, not in the ring, obviously, but next to the ring when Robbie Eagles made this face turn and like played out this story in New Japan that I thought was really well done and like slow burnt throughout the tournament, with Will Ospreay playing a key part in that. Will Ospreay himself in the B block, he goes through it. He wins it in the final match. He drops a couple of matches on the way, but he's regularly in the main events. A lot of really long matches, really grueling matches. So going through it, he's had a much harder time going through it than Shingo Takagi did. And that will play into the way these guys present themselves going into the finals and what the commentators are talking about as well going into the match. And just before we get to the match itself, Floyd, I wanted to sort of bring up actually, no, I should ask you, were you aware of any of that stuff with Robbie Eagles? Is this all new information to you? Is this new story to you?
It is not new because New Japan, their broadcast team, Kevin Kelly at the time, does an excellent job of keeping you aware of the situation. So they did cover it. So I knew it later on. I knew that it existed, but in the detail that you explained it, that was pretty much new for me.
Yep. Okay. Well, there you go. For you guys, if you've never heard that story before, then congratulations. And I'm glad I got to sort of lay it out here because it's one that's close. It's a personal favorite of mine that I feel like is sort of forgotten to the wind by all but the absolute diehards. But it was a really good bit of booking and really good bit of like organic storytelling. But let's before we get to the match itself, let's just talk quickly. I wanted to talk about the promos that they had before the match. So Will Ospreay wins his final match against Ryusuke Taguchi, which means that he will go through. They were both tied on 12 at the top of Block B, and Will Ospreay won the match, moves to 14 points, clear of everyone else. So he will go through to face Shingo Takagi. And Shingo comes out there at the arena already. Shingo comes out and he says, Ospreay, he has the technique, speed, and power, but he is stronger, as in Shingo is stronger. Shingo says he hasn't been beaten since he joined New Japan, and he wasn't beaten in his block, so he doesn't think anyone can beat him now. And it's pretty straightforward, it's the bully laying out what he is going to do, what he has done, and saying he's going to win, which is the most likely outcome because that's what's happened every other time he's gone in there. But Will Ospreay, he grabs the mic, and I wanted to bring it up mostly because of Ospreay's promo, because I think it really shows early on how Ospreay is putting things together with his promo delivery, bit over the place, but he gets the mic. He says he isn't scared of Shingo and his undefeated streak. He's only scared of letting people down. He says he loves New Japan. He loves the fans. He calls New Japan his home. He said it's been the worst year of his life. He loves being in the ring, but at the moment he goes backstage, he feels alone. His insecurities get the better of him. But he's been talking to other fans who feel the same way, and he wants to fight for everyone around the world who feels that way. He says, Shingo, you've got bigger guns than me, but I think with my heart, I've got a big heart, and I will fight with that heart, and I will fight. And he says he is the only man that can defeat Shingo. He will assassinate him. He will slay the dragon. And then later on backstage, he sort of elaborates on the mental health stuff, talks a little more about how he's been struggling this year mentally, talks about how he's beaten up and bruised. But then at the end, he says, call me St. George because I'm going to slay me a dragon. I really like this promo, Floyd. It's a bit all over the place, but the thing that it has is it's just got such great energy. And I feel like that is Will Ospreay in a nutshell. And that is almost his promos to this day. They're a little bit more polished, but it's as much as anything, it's about the energy that he exudes.
Okay, I'm not even trying to make this about me, but a few people that happen to compliment me on All Things Elite say, dude, it doesn't even matter what you say. You kind of have this infectious energy, right? That's Will Ospreay naturally, right? I don't think Will Ospreay is what you call a great promo, right? I don't. I mean, a lot of times he gets confused on what he's saying, blah, blah, blah. Don't think he's a great promo. But, dude, when he was done and said he was going to slay the dragon, I believed him. That was the first time I'd seen that promo. And it was I want to run through a wall for this man. This dude can lead me into war because he has this energy that he's going to fight to the last man. So in that promo, even in that, it was a very direct promo. He used a lot of I'm going to slay the dragon and then the King George thing, which I didn't know what that meant. I guess he slayed the dragon at some point.
St. George, famous story in British folklore, which suits Will Ospreay, but St. George, he's a knight that slayed a dragon. And very, very famous for the Brits out there.
Very, very famous for the Brits. I didn't understand it, but I was like, dude, let's go slay a dragon. But then I was like, Shingo's my boy. You ain't slaying Shingo. Undefeated
you ain't slaying
champion.
Shit.
Yes. You can't slay him. So I went in this match, a lot of times when I go in a match, especially in New Japan, it's very rare that I actually am rooting for anyone. I just love their in-ring style of New Japan. But I came in this match 100% behind Shingo Takagi. Screw Will Ospreay. This guy can't handle the dragon.
I thought Shingo was going to win as well. I wasn't really cheering for anyone. I really liked Shingo, and I enjoyed, as I said, I'd enjoyed Ospreay sing. The person I was cheering for was Robbie Eagle. He wasn't in the finals, I was looking forward to this match, but I thought Shingo was going to win. Because I thought that he was, he'd been unbeaten, and I just thought they'd continue that on, and they'd build him up, and I didn't think they would beat him until he was at least champion. Let's get into the match itself. Anyway,
I did want to add one more thing. I did not give a crap about LAJ until they added Shingo. I posted a picture on my Twitter and my Facebook and Instagram if you happen to follow me on there. And I said 4 New Japan champions because I had a picture with LIJ, and it's Naito, Sonata, Evil, Shingo, and Bushi at the time. And it was like, I got that picture for the picture with Shingo. That's the only one of the 5 that I cared about. And it was he was only in the group with LIJ. So I got an LIJ shirt, and I stood there, and I just like, if you see the picture, I don't know if you've seen it today, Sam. I am standing uncomfortably close to Shingo. Because that's literally the only person I wanted the picture with. The other 4 were kind of just there.
Well, look, you got to watch out, Floyd. The LIJ lovers can be pretty intense sometimes. And if you are an LIJ lover and you're feeling a bit put off by that and you don't want to listen to the rest of the podcast, well, go listen to the episode I did a couple of weeks ago with Trish Spears for Naito versus Okada. We talked a lot about LIJ and how great it is in that episode. So
and that's
you can
that's
get
what
your kicks there.
But I got an LIJ shirt on in the picture. So there you go. And I do say tranquilo a lot just in regular life, more than any American should.
I will say Shingo didn't, to me at least. And look, I wasn't as plugged into New Japan as like many fans are. Shingo felt like not an odd man out in LIJ. He sort of fit because LIJ is like a bit of a group of oddballs. Like they're kind of outcasts and stuff. And in some ways he fit that because he is from Dragon Gate. He's an outsider in New Japan. But he didn't fit in the way that, like, say, Hiromu, Evil, and Sonata did, to me at least. And, there may be people who've got other opinions on that. But, I'm not saying he didn't fit in at all, but he just didn't seem to fit in as seamlessly as those. He sort of was his own man a little bit more than I felt like those other guys were. And of course, Naito being the leader and the heart of the group, the center of everything. But look, let's get into the match. I talked lots about LIJ in that episode with Trish, so I'm a bit all LIJ'd out, but I'm not all Shingo'd out. We've got plenty to talk about with Shingo. Let's get into the match. We'll give the match its flowers as we do here on the podcast. And as I sort of said up front, believe it or not, people really like this match. It was Wrestling Observer Newsletter, Dave Meltzer. He gave this 6.5 stars, 6.5. That's way up there. Cage match, it's currently ranked 9.65, which is just outside the top 20 matches of all time. It was number 1 for the year on the Voices of Wrestling Match of the Year poll, and it was also Match of the Year in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Pretty well regarded by critics and fans alike. Floyd, one that historically has been well remembered as well, I think.
There was a 6-year run here where New Japan completely just owned Match of the Year.
Yeah.
This was one of the few matches that wasn't during Wrestle Kingdom. So it's funny because I think it was 7 years in a row. 5 were doing Wrestle Kingdom. And then the 2 years back to back, the Kenny and Okada was in June. And then Ospreay and Takagi was in June, which is cool because my birthday was in June. My birthday's June 10th. So the Dominion happened technically on June 9th, but it was like June 10th there. And then this happened on June 5th, which is a few days. So I both say both of those matches were my birthday gifts because, of course, I have to make it about me.
And this was like the last one in the run of that because the next year we had the Revolution tag in AEW that sort of took most of the bickies in those sorts of polls. So yeah, this was kind of the last of that run. Not that New Japan wouldn't have Match of the Years in coming years afterwards, but this one sort of last of that run that you're talking about there, Floyd. Let's look at the match itself. Shingo's out first. Kevin Kelly emphasizes how he just ran through the pool, just unbeaten, straight through everyone, brick wall stuff. I love Shingo's look here in this point, armless hooded robe, dragon mask, the wooden beads around his neck. It hasn't changed a lot since then, but this, particularly for a junior, so intimidating. It suited him so well. And he's also one of the great wrestling mullets.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He's a mullet that it's so cool because like literally he was the only one rocking one. No, like it's out of style, but it works for Shingo because who's gonna tell Shingo it doesn't work for him?
And I love the robe at this point as well. Like the robe looks so good, and even the dragon mask. Like normally I don't like the little flimsy, crappy masks that some wrestlers wear, but this is actually like a really good, thick looking mask, and he's got it on his face, and it's like he's trying to say he is a dragon. He's just got it there because it looks cool. It looks intimidating.
And so I always thought it was funny that his name was the Dragon and he came from Dragon Gate. Like he is the representative of Dragon Gate. You know what I mean? And it was just like when he came over, I was just like, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how rare it was for someone of that stature to switch companies or whatever. So I didn't know what that meant. And then he had the matches and stuff. And, I had, of course, keeping the strong style and another New Japan podcast. I always get their name wrong. I think it was Super J-Cast. Yes, I got it right this time. Yep. So I had both of them to help educate me and fill in those, blanks that I didn't know, because I tell people this all the time. It's except for this show, when you tell me to, it's very rare that I watch old wrestling. There's just too much new wrestling on. I'm like, tonight there's like two big ass shows. There's a SmackDown and then there's the New Japan show all at the same time in America. So it's just like wrestling's always on. So I don't really have time.
Why do you still watch SmackDown?
Because I don't know if you know this. You've
been watching it for like 100 years.
I don't know if you know this. The American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, kind of dig that guy.
Yeah, it's true. Fair enough.
I'm more than a little bit of a fan of him.
Just watch his segments on YouTube.
I
watch the whole show.
The day I become that person is the day I quit watching wrestling. I have never just watched clips on the line. I will never. I either watch the whole show or I don't watch that shit at all.
Okay. Well, that's a tangent I didn't expect to go down.
I kept it very short.
Ospreay, he comes out in like similar garb to what he wears today. Like he's got the Assassin's Creed style coat, the big kind of pointed hood on. He's got a sword with him though. Like he says he's going to channel St. George and slay the dragon. He like pulls out the sword and points it at Shingo. Really quite cool. I like how Kevin Kelly he specifically mentions how much longer Will has been in the ring than Shingo during the tournament. Shout out to Chris Samsa, who I know provides those stats, friend of the network, particularly of the been on Keeping It Strong Style a number of times. And it's an interesting point of difference for them, how much longer Kevin Kelly, how much longer Will Ospreay has been in the ring than Shingo Takagi throughout the tournament. And yeah, really cool little standoff in beforehand. Will Ospreay taking out the sword and pointing it at Shingo, and Shingo just standing there resolute, thinking, "I'm going to run through this sucker." He doesn't know what's coming for him. And they are in Ryogoku Hall, which is just like a stunning arena. Floyd, I love how Japanese arenas have their own like distinct looks and personalities, and you see that when they wrestle, and they highlight it as well. I really like that about Japanese wrestling.
Dude, I just love it now that I've experienced it live. It's just that it's a completely different way of watching wrestling. Like no one's standing up, no one's doing this. It's like they are completely enamored in what's going on, but always almost still respectful in how they watch it. So I do like how like this one. It looked like, I don't know how many people fit there, but it looked like 10,000 people were there. It was set up in a strong way that it looked like it was packed to the Guild Hill. I don't know what the correct term is, but it looked like it was packed, and it just like there was this energy from the crowd before this match. You felt the anticipation that they were about to see something special.
Yeah, and should note as well, like this comes after Jon Moxley's first match back after ditching being Dean Ambrose. He comes back, and this is his first match is right before this against Juice Robinson, and they have an awesome, really violent brawl. And these guys are going to go on to have a very different match. But I think that energy is still in the crowd from like seeing such an exciting match. And it's not where they need a break. It's like they're anticipating more to come. And you can feel that in the air. But yeah, like your point about Japanese crowds is well taken. Like I don't think anyone in a Japanese crowd has ever thought about blowing up a beach ball and knocking it around. Yes. They're there to see the action. They're there to buy into the story. They're there to cheer on their fave like their life depends on it. And it always comes across, and it always helps the product, I think, particularly when they really get going and really start to get behind people.
Yes. And John Moxley was the original Forbidden Door, because 10 days before this, he debuted in AEW at the end of the show, and he beat up Kenny Omega.
Yep. He goes on the Jericho podcast, has the Wade Keller podcast, and they just demolishes WWE, destroys them across like many podcasts, and then comes into New Japan and like cuts a tear, and he's just so energized. I'll never forget it. Look, as a John Moxley / Dean Ambrose fan, I was a massive Dean Ambrose fan and felt massively disenchanted by the way that WWE treated him, and to see him come in and debut the way he did in AEW and then come into New Japan the way he did, and just so clearly so full of vigor, was awesome. Let's get back to this match though. Plenty more time to talk about John Moxley at some point later. The match starts with these guys, really strong lockup. These are two, as we said, like these are big boys for juniors. They're both a bit smaller than they are today, but it's clear that neither of them are going to be long for the division, because they were both putting on size, and like this lock up in the start is one that would do the heavyweights proud as well. There's like an early test of strength and shoulder tackle that shows, even if Shingo has a slight edge in strength, Ospreay's not far behind him. And then after the strength part, we immediately get a reverse where Ospreay puts on the pace. And while Shingo comes off second best in that portion, he also doesn't get hit, and he manages to all but keep up with Will. So we've got kind of like this opening salvo that like hints at their strengths, but also shows that in all aspects, the others aren't too far behind.
Yeah. My favorite thing, because in every match, Shingo had done this rebound shoulder thing. The shoulder tackle. Every time he did it, he just, because he was bigger than everybody else, he just bullied them. And it was just like, to set the standard of what this match was going to be, he hits the rebound, and then Will Ospreay just pops right up like, what? I don't care. You're not going to bully me kind of thing. And then they go through this like exchange of moves. Sorry, that's my TV. Exchange of moves. And it's just like, it's so even. And Shingo, who's explosive, and he's been dominating everybody in strength, you show that he has speed and agility right there too. So it was like you saw Will Ospreay is not, the strength advantage is not as much as you thought it was with coming into the match, and then the speed and the agility wasn't much as much as you advantage wasn't as much as you thought it was. They were much more even when the ring bell actually rang, and I love that part of it.
And after that, we sort of always get some gamesmanship from Shingo. Like at the start, I feel like the crowd is calling out for Shingo more than they're calling out for Will. But he hits Ospreay, and then as they break up, he sort of rolls to the outside. He gets a bit of boo. He gets some boos. And then as Ospreay hits like a handspring off the ropes, Shingo runs away. He's not going to get hit by that. And he like lobs one of those icy water bottles at Will Ospreay. And it's like, up until that moment, Shingo hasn't had to do like any of those sorts of things. He hasn't been frustrated. He hasn't done that. And it's like, he's just been able to bulldoze through them. And it's like a bully who's come up against someone who's more of his equal, and he's just a bit pissed off at this point. And so he's like, tossing his toys out the cot a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. He was just showing that frustration because, again, it had been so, I wouldn't call it easy, but no one had put up a real challenge. Will Ospreay is like, yeah, boy, you better, I hope he brought your lunch pail because you're about to go to work.
Yeah. And then we get like a sequence where we get to see both men sort of doing flying moves to the outside. Ospreay presses himself over the ropes onto Shingo. He gets like really good height off that, as you'd expect from Ospreay. But Floyd, I think Shingo hits a better one, to be honest. He's in the ring and he just barrels at full pace off the ropes, does like a Tope con Hero, a flip over the top rope, and he winds up like not just taking out Ospreay, but his legs are like hanging over the barricades and kicking the chair of the audience members in the front row. It's wild. And he, like, as he runs it to do the flip, he just like roars. I just felt like it looked wild. Like it did. Dude. Ospreay flying looks polished and like perfect. Shingo looks wild when he's doing it.
Very scary moment, because his legs land right on the guardrail, but they landed basically in the safest way possible. Unfortunately for him, but and then he just gets up and he's like, "Oh, I'm okay," and I'm like, "Oh, he's okay." But yeah, there was a hold breath moment for it, because I never seen anyone land like that.
And I just love how he just like roars as he does it. And yes. Charlton, you say you haven't done it. Charlton even mentions on commentary, like, I've never seen Shingo do that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that gives Shingo control, because he hit that, so of course he's got control. He rolls Ospreay into the ring. He starts to like take over, stomps, lariats, suplexes, chops in the corner. And even when Will is able to like sort of inch his way back in, he catches Ospreay out again with a counter, and he really looks like early on in that he looks like an undefeatable favorite. Like in that moment, at about like a third of the way through the match, getting towards the halfway mark, he looks really undefeatable.
Absolutely. That's and it was. I thought that was kind of the story of this match. When you talk about the speed and endurance that Shingo early on in the match, because he had a bunch of short matches, was dominating, and then the story started developing more as we go along in the match.
And I think the story really starts to reveal itself after this as well, because as I said, that a third towards halfway through the match, Ospreay starts to use misdirection in his attacks. Whenever he's taking Shingo on face, like trying to take Shingo on straight up, he's getting beaten because Shingo is more powerful straight up. But he starts to use misdirection. And through doing that, he's finally able to get on the front foot. Like in that early stanza, he gets some moves in, but Shingo has most of the running. But Ospreay is able to fully get in control when he does a big kick. He fakes a strike, then does a kick instead and hits the kick. He then goes to run the ropes, changes angle, does a handspring flipping kick. Other juniors of power, Show sort of had the ability to match Shingo in power. Some had speed but not power, but Ospreay has both. And through using misdirection, he's able to, and using his smarts a little bit, he is able to finally take over, and through using that agility. And he gets a 2 count off a running shooting star press after that. It's like the first real portion of control that he's had in that movement. And that to me is like setting up how the rest of this match is going to go for these two wrestlers.
Yeah, absolutely. You perfectly described that. It was just like, Will Ospreay realized what he was trying to do wasn't working, so he had to change up his strategy a bit, and no one else had done this, and you could see it was throwing it off. If you've ever seen a movie, it's like when the bad guy is winning a certain way, and then the good guy's like, he's gonna win this way, and then he I guess best one I could use is Hobbs and Shaw, and they realized, you know what, this guy can't block both of us, so they had to attack him at the same time, and then they started getting the advantage. This was his version of that. He realized, if you go straight at him, you're gonna lose. I can't do that anymore.
The genius, I think, of this is, what did Will Ospreay say he was going to do? He said, "Call me St. George, I'm going to slay me a dragon." If a night is fighting a dragon, he can't take it straight on. Like a dragon is bigger, it's more powerful. You know, depending on what myth you're talking about, it can shoot fire out of its mouth. Like you can't take it straight on. But what a knight can do that a dragon can't do is can come in from angles, can use its smarts. It can use their smarts, like use his intelligence to take on this brute, this overpowering brute who has physical strength, has a physical strength advantage, but doesn't necessarily have the nimbleness and doesn't have the intelligence of a knight. And that's exactly what Ospreay's doing here. He's using that misdirection to beat the dragon. And that's what he said he's going to do. And that's how this is pulling out. It's like narratively playing out just as they said. And I don't know if they put that much deep thought into it, but that's, you know, that's the way it's worked out here. And that is what we can read into this match by looking at the actions and looking at what happens in the ring. They are playing out that story that Ospreay laid out at the start. Call me St. George because I'm going to slay me a dragon. And yeah, I think it's like quite intelligent the way that they put that out there and then play it out in the way the way this match sort of pans out.
Yep, absolutely. I think I just commented on that, so it would be just me saying the same thing again.
All good. But yeah, look, he can't always be on the upside, Ospreay. So like Shingo takes over again with some strikes. You know, Shingo, he's just got a hell of a straight right. I love his working punch.
Dude, it's so amazing.
Yeah,
it was like one of the first things.
So flush.
That made me like, oh, okay, I'm with this guy. That right hand, that way he pops it, I'm just like, dude, I was swearing he was hitting people when I first experienced it. I was like, oh, he's just hitting the guy, and no, he's just that good.
Yeah, and he hits another really incredible sliding lariat, like comes off the ropes hard and hits this sliding lariat. I love when wrestlers run the ropes and just really go at them hard. You know, Takeshita is a great example of that. Kenny Omega is a great example of that. And Shingo here is a really good, like he charges at the ropes and bounces off them with so much velocity. And I love seeing it.
Yeah, they attack the ropes. They don't like just go off of them. They attack it like they're pissed at them.
Yeah. And you know, like they fight onwards, and the moves start to get bigger and bigger. They end up on the top rope, and as Ospreay struggles, he's caught by Shingo, and Takagi's able to hit him with a top rope Death Valley driver. And you know, the pace is picking up, and the counters are starting to pick up as well. We get like a huge near fall when Ospreay counters a pumping bomber, which is Shingo's lariat, which is sometimes finishing, sometimes he uses a finisher. He slips over the lariat, like sort of does a flip around Shingo's arm and lifts him up for like this huge Liger bomb. He like really drops Shingo on his neck. A really beautiful series of counters with Ospreay sliding around Shingo's lariat, Shingo coming with so much force, and then Ospreay flipping it into a Liger bomb, like almost, you know, it's almost like a judo-esque sort of thing to do. Flip the opponent's velocity against them.
Dude, if this was an earlier part of this was earlier in the Best Super Juniors, I could definitely see that being a finish because it was so smooth and done so well. It was like, okay, what are you gonna do after that? And they answered very emphatically, but that was just that was probably one of my, if not my favorite, one of my favorite spots of the match, because you see people do athletic stuff. And sometimes athletic doesn't come off physical. This was the perfect combination of athletic and physical. This is something that you really only get from someone like Will Ospreay at this point.
Yep. Yeah, Will Ospreay and Shingo Takagi. Their chemistry is so good.
Yes.
And something must have happened because Ospreay suddenly has blood in his mouth, which, you know, that just adds to it. There's like just a little bit of blood in the mouth. And Shingo, like, it's not elegant. He just sort of like picks him up and slams him into the corner after catching an Oscutter. And then Ospreay starts to he gets back on the front foot. He starts to empty the clip. You know, he launches himself across he jumps off the ropes and launches himself 2/3 of the way across the ring, across the ring to hit a shotgun drop kick. He then hits a 630 senton, which is a move I haven't seen him hit for a long time. And then like another huge shooting star press. But even that and an os cutter at the center isn't enough. Like you mentioned before, it could have been a finish any other match. This would have been a finish any other match during the Best of the Super Juniors. And it's a really close near fall as well. Like Shingo Times putting his shoulder up so like perfectly with the near three count.
And I will say any person that just like cares about wrestling, that thinks about, if you're listening to this show and you're thinking about becoming a wrestler, please watch how the Japanese people kick out. They do not stare at the referee the whole time.
Yes, amen.
It is a beautiful thing that is like over the last few months, I've seen it with Kyle Fletcher, and then I started noticing it in New Japan. They kick out at the last second and they never look at the referee.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but you need to study it and figure it out, because in American wrestling, staring at that referee until you get to the 3 and it's like, oh, okay, they're not kicking out. How do you know? They're staring at the referee.
Preach, bro. Take us home. I couldn't agree more. I hate that. And sorry if you've never noticed that before, and we just ruin. Like, if you've never noticed that before, and you start looking for it, you're in for a bad time. We apologize. And if you're a wrestler out there, close those friggin' eyes. Listen, use your ears.
You know what the crazy part is? I've noticed it pretty much my whole existence. What I've started just noticing that I enjoy New Japan matches because they don't do that. I just noticed that. I'm like, that's why it never feels like it's over until it hits the 3, because they don't give you those tells that they're kicking out.
Yeah, and at this point, we'll keep moving on. I could harp on about that more as well, but we're gonna move on. Ospreay at this point, he starts to get a bit pissed off because he had 2 moments that we thought, anyone else this would have beaten. And he, starts to let Shingo back in a little bit because he gets pissed. He's trying to kick him directly. But that gives Shingo enough time to catch his breath and deliver a massive headbutt. And, I'm going to start sounding like a broken record. This match is very consistent. Every time Ospreay tries to attack Shingo directly, he fails and Shingo takes back over. And Shingo picks up Ospreay, hits his old finisher, the Made in Japan, and then he demolishes Will with a huge pumping bomber lariat. But then Ospreay is able to counter the Last of the Dragon, which is Shingo's finisher. He counters it with the sickest looking poison rana. Floyd, I paused it when he landed, and I sent you a shot of the way Shingo's neck bends on impact with the canvas. It is sick,
dude. It almost looks like a side pile driver, but he's not trying to protect him. It is crazy. It is crazy.
That's a very good way of describing. He's a pile driver. He's not trying to protect him.
Yeah, he's like, dude, you're just dead. Yeah.
And guess how Ospreay gets back in? He uses misdirection to get underneath Shingo's flow. They're trading headbutts. Shingo gets the better of those, but Ospreay pulls a hook kick from out of nowhere, which is a kick that uses misdirection. And then, they charge off the ropes. They both charge off the ropes and get in the middle. And Ospreay uses a Spanish fly to get the 2 count. And can I specifically talk about the Spanish fly? Will Ospreay does a Spanish fly different to anyone else. Spanish flies, normally it looks like it hurts both people exactly the same amount, but Will Ospreay somehow turns his body. He's the only one I see do it. I don't know how he does it, but he turns his body so that he lands on top in a pinning position off a Spanish fly. It looks perfect, and it looks way better than anyone else's Spanish fly. So specifically want to pull that out. He then pulls out the hook kick again, the hidden blade from behind. He fakes another hidden blade from the front, but instead he hits the DOS cutter. And then finally he gets Shingo up for the Stormbreaker, which is a move he's tried a few times throughout, but he hasn't been able to get him up. He's finally able to get him up, and he gets the 3 for the win. As I said, a broken record, but in this match, it's set up as a narrative that he's going to slay a dragon, and he does it throughout the whole thing, operating at a high pace, inside, outside the ring, even at a slow pace. Ospreay gets on the front foot when he uses misdirection and speed to overcome Shingo. And he's St. George. He slays the dragon. Floyd, what's your thoughts on this finishing sequence?
Dude, it literally, if you look at it, he had to use all of his finishers to beat him. Like the hidden blade. He had to do the super Os cutter off the top rope. Then he had to hit his Stormbreaker. This is final boss behavior.
Yeah.
This is what you do to a final boss. Shingo got the full dragon final boss treatment. I'm like, I still to this day can't remember an ending where Will Ospreay had to use all three of his finishers on the person to finally keep him down. It was the perfect story for the perfect performance and a perfect match. I truly believe this match was perfect. Like, it is
that's how you end an undefeated streak.
That's how you end. Yep. I was just better than you this day.
Yeah.
I was just better than you. It's a thing that companies that I have been watching my whole life has struggled with on how to end the streak. And I've seen two perfect ways to end the streak in my life. One was this one, and then other was Charlotte beating Asuka. Charlotte was just better than Asuka that day. And Will Ospreay was just better than Shingo. That's the perfect way to end the streak. That's how you get someone over with the streak. You made Will Ospreay this thing. No one else in the company could beat this man. No other junior could beat this man. Will Ospreay is from that moment the face of the juniors until he moves on. And of course, using the WWE example, Charlotte was the face of the women's division for years after that. That is how you build someone this way. Just build a streak, and then the other person's just better.
And it's a good point.
No cattle prods needed. No cattle prods needed.
And it's a good point that, to build a streak, it is great to have an undefeated streak and have a wrestler that's over because they've got an undefeated streak. But you do need to beat them at some point, and this is how you do it. And when you do it because you pick someone that you want to give something to. And Will Ospreay in this moment, like you look at New Japan, how it is, the Elite have just left. This is 2019. The Elite have left. Other wrestlers have left. And they're like, we've got spots we need to fill. We need to push people. And we need to make them special. And Will Ospreay is clearly someone that they wanted to get behind. And this is such a good way, as you said, to give him something special, to be the face of immediately the face of the juniors division, because he'd go on to wrestle Dominion and win the title at Dominion. But then also he's got that going, that momentum going into the G1 later on and everything. It's, getting this win was huge for him. And because he had to do so much and because of how strong he looked in the match, Shingo doesn't lose anything doing this. Like, losing this match did not halt Shingo one bit, I don't feel like. Particularly because he looked so strong in the match. He was overwhelming at times for Ospreay. And it was only because, as I said, like the way that they structured it with Will Ospreay using that misdirection, using his agility to like bamboozle a little bit Shingo and misdirect Shingo. It was only through that Ospreay was able to pull out the win at any point, was able to pull out, significant offense at any point. And so Shingo doesn't look, he looks strong in this loss because Ospreay had to empty so much out to get the loss. And it's a match that boosts both wrestlers' profiles so well. And as you said, as we said, this final sequence is, everything is executed so well. It looks like crisp, and the counters are like on point, but it still looks really physical and it looks like a sporting struggle. And that's how that's how I think wrestling matches should look. At the top, people, there seems to be in some circles blowback against the counters, like endless counters upon counters. But that's actually how sport works. Like, if you go and fight, I train Muay Thai, I fight. And the way that things work in that is someone will do something to you and you take that on board. If they hit you a certain way and you adjust for that, that is a counter. That is how sport works. Counters on counters is exactly how wrestling would work if it was real. And I'm sure, like, I haven't done amateur wrestling. I'm sure if you talk to an amateur wrestler, they would talk about how they adjust mid-match when someone's trying to do something to them. They adjust mid-match. You look at jiu-jitsu, like, that is flowing. That is constantly countering, feeling where your opponent is, countering until you catch them in something. To me, that is actually something that wrestling should have lots of, is counters, because they don't want to get caught. And these guys are really good at what they do. And they're really athletic. So of course they're going to counter the big moves. Floyd, anything else you want to say about this ending before we move along to the post-match?
Dude, I felt like, even though this was a junior match, I felt like this was the elevation, like the beginning of the elevation of Ospreay to full-on heavyweight.
100%, yeah.
And, for me, I'll tell anybody in wrestling, this type of level of match, to me, is better than any form of entertainment in the world to me. It's better than a great song to me. It's better than a great movie to me. It's better than great sex to me. Because guess what? The great sex, I finished at one time and it's over. But I can go back and watch this match anytime I want to and get the same feeling, especially if I let enough time go between. To me, there's nothing better than this. You can tell me the best joke you've ever heard. You can tell me the best episode of any TV show you've ever heard. Nothing is better than a truly perfect wrestling match.
It's taken 4 seasons, and I've never heard anyone compare wrestling to sex before, but now I guess it's happened. Thanks, Floyd. Yes. Yeah, you were the first. I definitely can't top that, other than to say, like, you're correct. This match is absolutely pitch perfect, absolutely fantastic, like, move perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's so well structured. And, I didn't, of course, watching it the first time, I was just wowed by how good it was, like how amazing it looked. It was digging through it again that I noticed that repeating theme of Ospreay, how Ospreay is being the knight slaying the dragon, watching through it just repeatedly. And if you haven't watched this match again, watch it with that in mind, and you'll see just how intelligent this match is. From, as I said, about that 1/3 point on, Ospreay gets the only way that he gets a string of offense is through that misdirection and stuff, which is exactly how, if you're a knight slaying a dragon, that's how you'd have to do it. What a way to execute. In the post-match, Ospreay gets presented with the trophy. He yells out, "I did it, Mom! I did it!" And the crowd's chanting for him. He gets the mic. He praises the crowd. He thanks Shingo. He says that he is the next generation of the company, which is, given that, a generation has kind of moved out. Kenny Omega's moved out. The Bucks have gone. There's other wrestlers have gone. There's space opening up. He says that he is the next direction. He's the best junior, and that this has been the best Super Juniors tour this year. The promos, as we said at the start, like, it's kind of a bit rare. Like, it's a bit all over the place, but the energy is just infectious. And he mentions that he's moving to Japan permanently, which the crowd love to hear. And he says he's going to put New Japan on his back, and he'll take on the juniors and the heavyweights, which sort of preludes him going into the G1, which is something he's going to do in a month or so's time, and something that Shingo is also going to do in a month or so's time. Both of them are moving up to the heavyweights. Shingo would actually never be in the juniors again after this.
He never won the junior title. That was just crazy.
No, he moved exclusively up to the heavyweights after this. Will would stay in the division until the end of the year, when he would move up pretty much permanently to the heavyweights. Floyd, anything to say about the promo at the end beyond just the energy's there? It's the Will Ospreay special.
No, it really is. I hope I get to hear a promo like this in August this year. Will is just one of those people. I will never say he's my favorite wrestler, but I'll never tell you I've ever seen anyone better than him.
Yeah. To me, he could be a career. No, he has played heel before, of course. And he did it when he first turned on Okada, and he was, started the United Empire. It was a heel faction. but I feel like his energy is just it's so endearing and infectious that he could be, at least in AEW, or he could be face his whole career. And I think it would make sense and it would suit him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I've never been comfortable with him as a face. I mean, as a heel, I mean. Like, there are some people I am clearly on. I love heels. You know how I feel. I'm called the edgy boy. I love heels. But to me, the only reason I love heels is because eventually the face will win. And when you have the right face, the right good guy, oh my God, it's amazing. WrestleMania 30 with Bryan Danielson, WrestleMania 35 with Kofi Kingston. When you have the right face, it's amazing. And I think Will Ospreay is that perfect face in this situation with Shingo, who was this dickish. He wasn't really a heel, but he was a dick. And you just needed somebody to come in and slam that bully. And you call the aerial assassin. And so that's I feel like it's his perfect role to beat the unbeatable.
Yep. Let's move beyond the match itself. So as I said, both wrestlers would back up and wrestle in the G1. MVP years for both of them through the Best of the Super Juniors into the G1. Both of them had bangers. Most people said Ospreay was the wrestler of the year. I like Shingo. Maybe that's just the person in me that wants to be a bit of a contrarian. But I love Shingo as well. And I thought he had a fantastic G1. Obviously, as we all know, Ospreay did. I think for me, this is the year that Ospreay really graduated into his best form. Sort of in ring, you can really see putting things together. He, starts to wrestle a little bit more like a heavyweight rather than the junior style that he had. And of course, he's always been a hybrid. He's still very much like you'd say he's like a light heavyweight. He's not a full-on heavyweight. Like, he's not a bruiser, and he's not, say if you're talking New Japan, he's not an Oleg Bolton. He never has been, never will be. He's always been, about speed and power as well. But that's not dissimilar from someone like Kenny Omega, for example, or even Tetsuya Naito, to use another New Japan wrestler who's at the top, or Kota Ibushi. Wrestlers who have got that speed and that high-flying ability, but also blend it with heavyweight size and heavyweight moves. And this is the year Ospreay really starts to put those things together, I think.
Yes, and if you're looking at his Wrestler of the Year, he's won it 4 times. This was the first time, and this kind of got you to the Ospreay era, like FSM 1 or 2 every year after this. Wrestler of the Year several times, after this, he is, like Mr. In-Ring. It's like, it was almost, even in the next year, Kenny Omega still Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega was winning all the awards, but he almost kind of, as far as the New Japan landscape, it was almost like the torch was passed to Will Ospreay. Yeah,
and it's a shame that he never really got that full run in New Japan right at the top, right at the tippy top.
Correct.
COVID hits, and of course that interrupts things for him initially because he's back home in Britain at that point, living with Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis of all people, and probably B. Priestley as well, I'm guessing, in there at the time. But up to that point, he's just absolutely cooking with gas. And then he gets back and he's still, he does win the IWGP, but he gets injured while he's doing it. And Shingo actually wins it after that, of all people. But he never really gets that top run as a champion in New Japan, which I think is a shame. It feels like it's something that he might even want to go back and rectify at some point. When he's made enough money in America, wrestling American TV wrestling, getting paid absurd amounts of money for what he does. Maybe it's something he would want to go back and rectify, because I don't know. I get the feeling that Ospreay is someone who New Japan means something to. That's my vibe. That's the vibe I get off him. I don't know if I'm being worked by him. If so, he's working me really well. And it'd be a classic wrestler thing for it to just be that. But I do feel like it's a bit of a shame that he never got that real tippy top run, because of various things, COVID, injury, and then obviously leaving to go to AEW and make the money that he, feels like he needs to make in his life, in his wrestling life to set himself up for the future, which is a fair enough thing to do. But it's just like a small thing that like I'd love to have seen him check that off the box, so to speak.
I have one goal, one hope for Will Ospreay, that he finally gets to be the official face of Nando's. That's my big thing.
Is Nando's even a thing in the UK these days? I don't know.
Absolutely. So every time I go, I went to All In for a couple times. I go to on All In day. I have Nando's. It's straight a shout out to Will Ospreay every time, because I in America I love this place called White Castle, and not everybody likes White Castle. It's a fast food joint. It's little trash burgers. Not everybody likes it. But you talk to me, you hear the passion that comes out when I talk about White Castle. So to hear this man, this, athletic person, it's like, my favorite food is this fast food chicken place. And he talks about it with such passion and he loves it. I had to try it. So, like, my thing is on All In, we eat Nando's. It's because of Will Ospreay. And I do remember him saying that he wanted to be, like, the spokesman or person for Nando's, which would, be awesome. So, living vicariously through him, because I would love to be the spokesperson for White Castle, I hope he gets that one day.
What do you think of Nando's, Floyd? Because Nando's tried to launch in Australia. There was one in Newcastle for a while, and I believe there's some still open, but it definitely did not catch on the way that they hoped it would.
Man, pit fire chicken with some awesome sauce. Some awesome sauce. It was great. And then the chips, as they call them, but fries were delicious. I mean, honestly, it's like, yeah, when I tasted it and I ordered the order at the time, I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I ordered the exact order that Will Ospreay ordered, and I was like, he said, "This is my order," and I was like, "Okay, I'm ordering that," because I had never been there before.
I will order that, sir.
Yeah, I had never been there before. Yep. I'd never even heard of it. So it was like, of course, I'm gonna order what the person that loves this place says to order, and I thought it was good. My wife likes it. My wife doesn't like really anything. It's so funny. I'm lucky she likes me, but generally when it comes to like food and stuff, she was like, the sauce is wrong, this is wrong, and she ate it and she's like, oh, this is really good. And I was like, my eyes got all big, like, what? No, like, so I'm not used to her liking stuff, but she liked Nando's.
I can see why wrestlers would like it, because it's like you could have it and it's relatively clean. Like they'd have the chicken breast, maybe not have the chips, maybe have the double mash. Yeah, like you could get away with it, and it's still relatively healthy if you're trying to look after your diet, which if you're going to be wearing wrestling gear in a ring, you probably want to be doing.
Yeah. So
yeah, I can see why wrestlers like it. Not my favorite restaurant, to be honest. It's okay, like there's nothing wrong with it, but it's good.
I'm good having it once a year. Yeah. I'm fine with my once a year during All In. I'm like, because I believe there's a couple in America, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to go to them. Yeah. I'm just like that one day to say, hey, it's All In. I'm having Nando's. That works for me.
Lloyd, if you come to Australia, I'll have to introduce you to the HSP, the Halal Snack Pack. That's the most beautiful Australian creation that we have. So
the Halal Snack Pack.
Okay. Yeah, mate. Look it up. It's incredible. Let's get back to this podcast. So we've gone down some fun tangents tonight, and I love it. I'll also just say, I love Shingo. It's fantastic to watch this match. He was so good at that time, and he just kept on going. As I said, I voted him Wrestler of the Year this year, and he had many, many more awesome matches after even after the pandemic struck. He was fantastic, and he actually had his run at the top during the pandemic as well. It's kind of sad that it came when they only had the clap crowds and the restricted crowds, but it's still awesome that he got a run at the top of New Japan. He got a main event of Wrestle Kingdom. No one can ever take that away from him, and such a good wrestler. And even to this day, he just continues to have these awesome heavyweight matches that still are based around, just how big and tough and strong he is.
Dude, yeah, I was thinking, with Tsuji, I think a feud with Goto and a feud with Takagi would put him right on the path of being that ace that they want him to be, because those are two guys that don't know how to have bad matches. So
absolutely,
that's that's the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, look, even especially given Shingo's history with Tsuji in Los Ingobernables, that could be a fantastic feud for him to have down the line. So yeah, look, and I think this match, in terms of how it relates to AEW, obviously Will Ospreay is a big part of that. And this is the year that, as I said, I feel like Ospreay, we knew he'd have it wrestling as a junior through, 2016, 2017, 2018. But when you saw him this year, this is when he really puts the pieces together. And the style that he has now in AEW is the style that's being developed this year. And is coming together in this year as he moves up. He puts on muscle. He's putting on mass. This is the year he gets the Stormbreaker as his finisher. He debuts the Hidden Blade earlier in the year against Kota Ibushi at the Dome. This is putting the pieces together in what will become even his gear. This gear that he wears, he starts wearing this style of gear this year. Up until this year, he'd been wearing the little flags around his gear, which I thought was a cool look, but isn't really a I'm going to wrestle on American TV look. This look that he has in 2019 is a I'm going to wrestle on American TV look. And this is when he gets the push as well to the top of the company in the wake of AEW's creation and people departing New Japan, moving on. And that's a great, a thing that happens when people move on from promotions. There's opportunity. That's what's happened in New Japan at the moment as well. There's been so many people clear out of the company. Tanahashi retiring, Kazuchika Okada leaving, guys like Ibushi no longer around. There's opportunity at the top, and it's actually a good thing for promotions to have that movement through, because it allows for people to come up. And in this year, 2019, it allowed for Shingo, it allowed for Ospreay to come up, get their pushes, move up into the heavyweight division, wrestle in G1s, wrestle as a heavyweight, have featured positions, top billing, main event matches at sizable shows like this one. It's a good thing for wrestling when that happens, and that's sort of what Ospreay is the beneficiary of here.
Oh, absolutely. I just truly believe like the style in AEW is if it's not the direct son, it's the least like the grandson or a distant relative of New Japan. It's like
100%. It is a direct line.
Yeah, and you just look at it, it's like you look at the champions in AEW. There are some former, almost all of them have worked in New Japan at some point, and it's just like that's how it goes. This is a lot of talent, and a lot of the storylines and stuff come from them. It was a New Japan match that gave the Tony Khan the idea to start AEW, to be like, oh, okay, we can actually do this. So New Japan is as much a part of our history as far as AEW fans. It's a much part of our history as anything. That's why I always say I don't know how, especially from the AEW side, how you could ever hate New Japan. Yeah. How you could ever be anything but supporting of them.
To that point, I love how MJF says he hates New Japan.
I love, what's so funny?
Especially when early on, when the AEW, because a lot of AEW's early audience came from New Japan, which was why Forbidden Door was such a success the first time. But I love that MJF has always maintained that he hates New Japan and that he loves Evil. Evil was his favorite wrestler in New Japan. So good.
Yeah. Yes. and on top of that, I love how Tsuji fucking hates AEW. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. If you want to do MJF versus Tsuji at Forbidden Door, It's an amazing match because they both. This is not like it. Almost doesn't even seem like a gimmick. It seems like they legitimately hate the other company.
Like, and there's people who get funny about that because they're like they don't want to see like the tension because the fan bases get tetchy with each other, right? Particularly like the New Japan fan base. There's a segment of the New Japan fan base that I feel like likes WWE more than AEW, and they prefer that their wrestlers go to WWE than go to AEW, which to me seems bonkers. Because but I like at the same time I do I kind of I guess if I twist my mind and do backflips, I can understand the sentiment a little bit. But there's a group of New Japan fans that really resent AEW. And like, why not lean into that more? And why not create conflict? Because conflict is drama. Drama is intriguing, and what is intriguing is what people want to watch. Like people are entertained by conflict.
Yeah, see, people always say controversy creates cash. I think conflict creates cash.
100%.
I will steal the line from Mr. Joe Lanza because I like to give him his credit because he says no one does. Heat and hate, that's professional wrestling.
I agree. Floyd, I've had a ball chatting with you about this match. We've gone down some roads I definitely did not expect to go down, but I'm glad we did. And is there anything further you want to say about this match before we get out, give our plugs and get out of here?
Dude, all I can say is if you've never seen this match, watch it. I mean, give it a shot, a look at it. I truly believe within 1 minute, it will have you like set down, okay, I got to finish this match. And that's how, like, give it 1 minute. Like, from the bell rings, give it 1 minute. And if you're not like, I'm down in this match, you can tell me I'm full of shit because I think any professional wrestling man likes this match. I'm not saying it's got to be your favorite match, but I think any professional wrestling fan is going to like this match.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you've never seen it, this is a match that's well worth your time. And it's not a super long match. Like, it is a New Japan main event. So it's not something you're going to, watch over one single drink, but it's not obscenely long, and it's a match that goes quickly. It respects
that pace.
Yeah, the pace is fast. It respects your time, and it goes quickly when you sit down to watch it. You're not sitting there twiddling your thumbs wondering what's going to happen next. If you have enjoyed the show today, I would love it if you could rate or review the AEW Match Guide on the podcast app that you're listening on. That would mean a lot. With launching this 4th season, maybe there's people who've dropped off their subscriptions or whatever. This will help bring it back up in the feeds. Talk about it on social media, whatever you want to do. I appreciate it all. If you want to discuss this match with me, you can jump into the AEW Discord. I'm not on a lot of social media anymore, but you can jump into the Social Suplex Discord, the AEW Match Guide thread. We'll have discussion about this match on there. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you watched it, if you got the same narrative from it that Floyd and I did. Tell me what you think about Shingo, what you think about Will Ospreay. And the Discord is just generally a great place to interact with other wrestlers, other wrestling fans. Although apparently there are some wrestling burners in there. I don't know who they are, but I've been told by people who would know that there's a few lurkers in there. So you never know who's watching when you type on our Discord. But yeah, the Social Suplex Discord, there'll be a link for that in the show notes. Of course, please check out my boy Floyd's show, All Things Elite, the longest running AEW show podcast, regular of all time. None have done it for longer, and very few do it better. I'd say the only ones that do it better are here on the Social Suplex, and we're all even. We're all at the top. And yeah, look, as I've said as well, thank you so much for listening in. Thanks for sticking with me. This 4th season of the podcast is really enjoyable. We've got plenty more places to go and people to see in this exploration outside of the rings of Tony Khan. We'll go back to AEW at some point down the line, but for now, I'm having a really great time. Just going anywhere and everywhere. We've been to Shikara, we've been to New Japan, We're probably going to go to WWE at some point. But, the good WWE at some point. So make sure you keep tuning in every fortnight on a Monday. And yeah, Floyd, once again, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you on this podcast. And thank you to everyone for listening. I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the AEW Match Guide podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then you can subscribe on the podcast app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Also, feel free to let me know on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. I'd love to hear from you. The AEW Match Guide podcast is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where you can find many other fantastic podcasts discussing not just AEW, but all parts of the world of professional wrestling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Sam Brown.